Hey everyone, I'm Trent Kusters, co-founder and studio director at League of Geeks, and this is The Game Maker's Notebook. Today I've been chatting with David Erosa, producer, and Enrique Cabeza, game director of Blasphemous 2. They're from The Game Kitchen, a studio based out in the south of Spain. Incredible story about them getting their start at the studio, making games for hire, service work for other studios, but how eventually that led to almost the studio collapsing, and their last ditch chance at survival was a game called The Last Door, where they figured, hey, if we're going to go out of business, let's at least get one of our own games out. And that gave them enough success in that niche of point-and-click horror games to then kick off the Kickstarter for Blasphemous, which then saved their studio. We talk about that art style and the inspiration for Blasphemous coming directly from their culture, from the religion and the traditions in Spain, and how that actually not only gave them a way to cut through the noise and the saturation of the market, but also to share their culture with the rest of the world, and the impacts that that's had for people who they're representing all around the place. We also then speak about how once they had that art style, that actually led the development of the rest of the game, that they didn't have a game design really. The game that they were making was determined by the art, almost a completely different way to the way most of us are making games. And then, even when Blasphemous was a success, they decided to throw out almost everything from Blasphemous 1 and start again, new project, new Unity scene from scratch on a whole new code base. And so we dive into why that decision was important for them, and it may seem incredibly wild to all of us developers listening. The game's had a resounding amount of success, just recently released on Steam. These guys really threw their all into this interview, speaking from the heart. It's great to get the perspective of developers out in Spain who've had such success. I really hope you enjoy the episode.
But on this ascending path of penitence, the arch-confraternity awaits you. Those penitents that the miracle itself took as its sentinels now await your arrival. Orospina, the confraternity of embroiderers. Benedicta, of the confraternity of endless orison. Odon, of the confraternity of salt. Lesmes, of the confraternity of incorruptible flesh. All under the dictate of the oldest penitent, Eviterno, father of the penitents.
Hello, David. Enrique, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning. I hear you've just both come off a holiday over there as well, so back in the studio today, getting things done.
Yeah, that's correct. The whole team took a couple of weeks off after the release of the game and the patch. We just got back today.
Incredible. All right. Well, we're definitely going to dive into that because I love when we hear of teams doing that. In fact, there's another team that we're trying to interview for a podcast, but they've just taken a break off after releasing their game. So I'm absolutely supportive of it. It's such a great initiative. But we start this podcast in the same place every time. And so I'd love to ask the two of you, and maybe we'll start with you, David. When was your first interaction with video games that you remember being meaningful to you? Like, and, sort of got you thinking about getting into games or, having a connection with them?
Well, my really first interaction with a video game, I think it was 6. When my father got an 8-bit computer at home, and it had this puzzle game in which you only move with the cursor keys.
Yep.
The the different pieces of the puzzle to complete it, and it's made this cheerful sound when you complete it. I was amazed by it.
It got you as a 6-year-old. It got you. The cheerful sound just got your brain.
Yes, I didn't got to get any console when I was young. I was always with a few years. I was always getting console with a few years of delay, let's say.
Yeah.
So when everyone had a Super Nintendo or a Mega Drive, I was getting a Master System, and that was indeed my first and only console until I got a PS2 by myself when I was 22, I think it was. So
Yeah. You're able to get out on your own and get your own current console and join everyone else alongside it.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I had an NES and my parents refused to get me a Super Nintendo, so I was a whole generation behind until the Nintendo 64 came out as well. All right, Enrique, what about you? What was your core video game memory, your earliest one?
I think it was in an arcade. I think if I remember correctly, I play Cabal. You know the game Cabal? And I asked my parents for infinite coins. And they say, oh, this is going to be a problem in the future.
Yeah, children don't usually need many reasons to ask their parents for infinite coins. So it's terrifying when they find a really legitimate one like the arcade. Amazing. And so do you remember, were you was there video games in the home a thing? Were you a PC? Did you have a PC in the home, or were you playing on the consoles, or did it become a bit of part of your life?
I have a 8-bit computer that was terrible, I think. And then I play in my father's computer from his work. Not many games worked there, but I could play Prince of Persia or Maniac Mansion.
Yeah,
And it was amazing. But
I
yeah,
love it.
I was more a PC gamer. Consoles were very expensive here, and the games were incredibly expensive for we to buy that.
Yeah.
So it was too much.
Yeah, I was the same. My parents were like, I had to buy mine from like the local secondhand store. I had my face pressed up against the glass, seeing what the new games that people had traded in were. My parents would never buy me like a full priced video game when I was a kid. So I totally relate to that. So, David, let's go back to you. So how did that experience then sort of translate into video games? Is the Game Kitchen your first video game gig? Were you doing things in video games before that? How that dot from David won and his brand new PlayStation 2 to your first job in games sort of go about?
Well, I think it was like 10 years after I got my PS2 until I got to video games development, because I was programmers. I've been working as a programmer since I was 22, 23 years old, I think.
Oh, wow.
So I spent 10 years on a consultant company.
Yeah, wow.
Turns out that Enrique was working in there as well.
Did you know each other at the time you met? Was it a small enough company? No, just one of those big consultancy companies.
It's one of the biggest companies here in the south of Spain.
Right.
It turns out that Mauricio, the CEO of the Game Kitchen, was in there as well.
Wow, amazing. Incredible.
There are a lot of people who came out of that company. By that time. So I spent like 10 years in there. When I dropped out, I became a freelancer. At first, doing mobile phone applications for Android. But one day I saw something that triggered me the interest for developing video games, and that was Marcus Paulson, Notch, the creator from Minecraft, programming during a game jam, Ludum Dare, a game from scratch in Java. And I saw that and I thought, well, he's a really good programmer. is a 10x, as we say. And he did this during the weekend. Oh, okay, I cannot do that during the weekend, but maybe I can do something.
Maybe in a week.
A week, or in a month, a month, or 2 months, or I don't know, whatever it takes. But it's something that seems cool, and that triggered my interest in programming video games. So I started installing Unity and playing with it. Well, one thing led to another, and here I am.
Amazing. Incredible. And so, what about you, Enrique? Now, well, David's sort of given us one little spoiler. You obviously worked at this consultancy firm as well. But how did that kid playing Manic Mansion end up finding his way into video games?
I remember being desperate to be able to create things, and I'm not a programmer or whatsoever. So I use these editors to make things, and one of the things were small text horror adventures.
Yeah,
very basic stuff, but I could be able to express myself and be able to do something. And also I think I use this RPG makers whatever things to be able to control a character and interact with the screen and stuff. I was desperate to do something.
Yeah, to just take anything that you could to like make a game, put a game together, right? I remember playing. I wasn't like, I didn't play much PC games. I was like a console gamer, but the one thing that I did get is I had Age of Empires on PC, and that had like a little map editor, and that was really the only glimpse as a kid that I got for creating these little scripted campaigns or maps. I just spent hours in it. I loved it. It's funny how back in those days, any sort of glimpse at those creation tools, they're everywhere now, obviously, right? But it was amazing. So you took them. I imagine you're making games in Game Maker. Did you do any game making commercially before the Game Kitchen or anything?
No.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get straight onto the Game Kitchen. So I think, if I'm right, Game Kitchen was founded in 2010.
Yes, correctly.
Tell me the story. How did it come about?
We were a bunch of nerds. Mauricio started a group.
Yeah.
To make these before video games, they make this. It's called demo scene. It's like a clip videos make with software in real time. It's a kind of non-interactive visual thing. It's very difficult to explain.
Yeah.
And they started to win awards.
Yeah.
In Spain, so they thought, hey, let's do this in a whole new level. Why don't we start make video games?
Yeah.
And see what we can do. And that group were very unstable. A lot of people leave. A lot of people came in. I was one of the ones that came in. And we were learning, and we were trying to find out how to make video games. In that time, there were not many engines. There were many information about it.
Yeah.
So we start from the very bottom, and we started to win small awards until we won the third prize in a Microsoft International Game Contest.
Wow. Was that like the old XNA awards that used to happen?
Exactly. The Dream Build Play.
Yeah.
We won the third prize in 2009.
Yep.
And we thought about creating a company and start making video games for other people, for companies.
Like work for hire stuff, yeah.
So we started to having a very low salary, and very non-interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's
all the
hard
time.
to keep the margins high, let alone pay yourselves on the service work sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, but we were very happy at that time. We were very
Yeah,
naive.
awesome.
We were very, I don't know, naive. I think that's is
Yeah, that's the
the.
word.
But they were happy times anyway.
Yeah. So, David, you're at the Game Kitchen around this time as well, I imagine.
No, I wasn't. I
No.
was by that time. I was a freelancer. I was
Yeah.
a
Okay.
freelancer indeed
Mhm.
since 2010 to
Right.
2015, and by that time I was teaching at a
Mhm.
school, game
Mhm.
development. I didn't join the Game Kitchen until 10 days before the release of Blasphemous 2.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I always tell the same joke. I joined for the glory, but not for the work.
I love it because it's kind of like the opposite of the Blasphemous too, like whole flagellant,
Yeah.
make your way through, just come along at the end.
You came
But
Amazing.
with they
I,
had a nice salary,
yeah,
and not the and
I'm
not
sorry.
the one
I
the
was
one.
waiting for the question. Yeah.
Clever man, clever
But
man.
I already knew them since I think I met them in 2014
Yeah,
during
right.
an event here in Barcelona called Game
Yeah.
Lab, in which I met
Yes.
Carlos Viola,
Mhm.
the soundtrack composer,
Yep.
and Mateo, who is no longer here at the Game Kitchen.
Mhm.
And I knew them for The Last Door, which is the
Mhm.
game that you can see
Yes, of
behind the
course.
Tunic box.
Yeah, it's right there. Which was your interactive, the Game Kitchen's interactive sort of like point and click horror pixel game, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, correct.
fantastic.
So I already knew them. I always said this is me being. Uh, I always say that the only thing that would take me from teaching would be to
Yeah.
join in the Game Kitchen. So sometime before the release of Blasphemous, Mauricio came to talk to me,
Mhm.
proposed me to join the team, and I
Amazing.
was really glad to join.
Incredible. And so someone had obviously told them that you said that about leaving teaching, that you would join if they came and approached you. So you were saying, did you join just before the release of Blasphemous 1 or Blasphemous 2?
Blasphemous 1.
Yeah, cool. Amazing. All right. So, Enrique, let's go back to you for a second. Tell me about, did you have a plan in place for sort of, I've spoken to someone before on the podcast who is doing the work for hire stuff, and he described it as an escape velocity, like how are we going to get that big job or that opportunity to work on our own things? Did you have a plan set up? Was there always the goal of making your own game? Were you trying to amass enough cash, or what was the plan?
In my heart, I wanted to make my or our own thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it was very difficult to think of because
Yeah.
in those moments we needed to pay the rent and
Yeah.
to learn, and it was like out of the question to start a game and have and take that risk because we thought we could put the company at a very high risk.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the working to make video games for other people didn't work at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we started to think about making this game, The Last Door,
Mm-hmm.
as a last resource.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if the company is going to fail, let it fail, but making the thing that we wanted to make.
Yeah, that's it. Let it fail because of your game, not because of someone else's, right?
Yeah. So it was kind of it was very risky because we didn't have any. The team had to leave
Mm-hmm.
eventually. A lot of people from the team because we didn't have as I said, a nice salary at all. We
Yep.
were struggling a lot in those
Mm-hmm.
times. So
Yeah.
we make the last door as a last uh, chance.
Yep.
and we decided to make a very small thing, a very concealed thing, and make something that make our passion to how you say, to shine, to grow, to as you say, you put in a in a fireplace, you put wood in that,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep, to
So
restart everything, right? To give you a new opportunity. Yeah.
so we make this game was the first game that we did with as a company, not as a amateur group.
Yeah.
So and eventually this game, it was an adventure game, point and click. So it's not very commercially wise. I don't know how you try to say that.
Yeah,
Not wise.
commercially wise makes sense. Yeah, definitely you could say that.
But it was the minimum thing we can do with our passion.
Yeah.
In.
So let's because that sounds like such a, I'm sure there are so many people out there, probably folks listening right now, who've been in that position either at a company or with their own studio. And so did you, when you realize that, okay, we've only got so much money in the bank, we've only got so much time left, were there layoffs and people having to leave ahead of even just getting a chance to make something? Because obviously that's a really hard environment to then go and be creative in as well, once a bunch of your colleagues have left? Or was it more so that there was the risk of losing everyone if you didn't take this chance?
We already lost almost the whole group. We only were, I think, 4 people.
Wow. And so how many were you before then?
Not many more, maybe 7, 9.
Yeah, right. But when you're that small, that's half of your team. That's still a lot. That's meaningful.
And we didn't have any artists. We didn't have designers, so you had to become an artist and become an animator and become a designer and writer.
Yeah.
And with the help of the programmers and the producer, we could do something. But we didn't have for years. We didn't have any salary. So
wow,
we have a very low salary, and we went to no salary at all for some time.
Yeah.
So the survivors were only 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And some people that came in and leave immediately.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to work with a publisher because the game was a small success in a tiny niche of players.
Yeah.
So we have this thing that you say, oh, we have this
the spark.
Yeah. We have a path. And we didn't have any money in the bank at all. It was a very terrible time.
Yeah.
And
how long did you work on how long did these 4 or 5 people actually work on The Last Door to get it out? Do you remember how long that was?
Maybe 2 years or something.
Wow.
The Last Door was made by episodes.
Yeah.
So we released 1 episode, and we could sell. Not sell. It was like a crowdfunding episode.
Yep.
Business model.
Yeah, right.
That didn't work very well, but it keep us maybe to have 1 breakfast every day.
Yeah. Just at least put some oxygen in the tank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We our family helped us in these crazy
times.
Crazy times. Yeah.
Right. Well, at least I'm sure you got the money now to pay them back. So let's okay. So you go from The Last Door. It's not really commercially successful, only in a small niche, but you get a publisher on board. You're sort of, as you're saying, your model, your commercialization model for the game is then also maybe not commercially wise or too successful. How then do you get to a game like even Blasphemous 1? How do you start? Surely you didn't just have really bad breakfasts and live on no salary for another 2 or 3 years, right? Like, what was that moment for Blasphemous 1 where it became possible?
We were 3, and then we were 3.
Right. So yeah, you'd lost another 25% of the
Yes.
team. Yeah.
And we thought, what about making a Kickstarter and just put everything we have on that, and let's see what happened. And the Kickstarter was being very well, was very interesting.
Yep.
And some people came in when we show the stuff we've got at the time, and the team grew a little.
Yeah.
We published The Last Door on Steam with the help with this publisher, so that helped us to raise a little bit of money to be able to pay concept artists and animator and create a small group, but with some salary, and with the promise that we're going to make a nice project for Kickstarter.
Right.
And Kickstarter saved our team.
So am I right in understanding that you go to Kickstarter first and it didn't really work out and you went back and tried a second time, or did you just show people your plan for Kickstarter but it wasn't quite ready yet?
For The Last Door, we use crowdfunding but not Kickstarter.
Yeah, okay.
We use like a custom website and
gotcha. Yeah, your own thing.
I'm pray God to
they came, yeah. But for Blasphemous, did you have like a plan for Kickstarter and then you got the publisher on board to help, or did you just go straight out the door?
When we published the trailer on Kickstarter, when we published the campaign site, we have a call from some publishers.
Yeah, okay.
So when they help in the giving us a small finance, how you say?
Funding.
Funding to be able to finish the game, and we have a nice relationship. That time, the publisher helps us a lot.
Yeah.
We're very grateful for the community to help us to be able to make Blasphemous a reality.
Yeah, I know you had it was like a $50,000 goal, and you got more than 300,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so we're very grateful.
Yeah, I bet it's an amazing response. It's a Kickstarter staff pick and everything. So, yeah, it's amazing. And this was also, I mean, like, you know, Kickstarter had kind of quietened down around this time as well. Like, there wasn't many Kickstarters doing too well. You know, the Kickstarter bubble had burst. You know, you could say. All the big crazy days of our Kickstarter or Double Fine or these other ones. And so to still do a Kickstarter and to have it do so well is really quite an achievement.
Yeah.
What do you think it was that people responded to so well with the Kickstarter, Enrique? What do you think made it successful?
Good question. I think the art and the atmosphere, the weirdness of the main character and the bosses, and this trailer we did with the giant baby ripping off the player, and it was very, how you say, all in, like a bloody, gory,
over the top.
Yeah, and also we gave this game a lot of our culture elements to make it pop out from other dark fantasy games.
So, very important question for you, David. Did you back the Kickstarter?
I did.
Good.
Not only because well, we were already friends, and I knew them, and I knew that they were going to be making this game, but also, as Enrique said, it was so shocking seeing this trailer, which portrays all these elements from our culture and our city, a lot of references that you could instantly recognize as someone who lives here in Spain or in
And
Seville.
I was going to say, particularly in the south of Spain as well, right?
Yeah, I was like, I remember that when I saw the baby ripping the player, which became a huge problem for the designers to decide how do we kill a baby in a video game. I remember thinking,
some of the questions you only ask yourself in the video games industry. It's like no one goes to work and says, "How are we going to kill the baby?" It's like
because they already had that there in the trailer, so it wasn't something that, and it had this huge impact because it was the ending thing of the trailer, so they couldn't remove it.
Of course.
I was truly amazed by the idea, by the game itself, by the how do you say this?
The setting, the atmosphere.
How well implemented this was into a video game
without the execution.
Yeah, thank you. The execution without being grotesque or just for being grotesque, but with meaning, a real meaning.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's something that is amazing about Blasphemous is it doesn't actually feel gratuitous at any point in time. So maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm actually quite interested to hear a little bit because, as you said, David, and a lot of people may not know this, but I know you, both of you have sort of spoken about this extensively in different interviews and things. The game is heavily, heavily inspired by elements of Spanish culture, especially like religious traditions and art and dress and everything, like Holy Week in Spain. And I'm getting this correct, am I not?
Yeah.
Totally. So tell me a little bit about that seed of inspiration and how it struck you, Enrique.
When we started to make this the first mock-ups of the game, we wanted to start from the art because there were no designers in the team at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to make pixel art from The Last Door. That was very different, but to learn the necessary to make nice mock-ups,
mm-hmm.
to visualize the game and to communicate the rest of the team the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was making these mock-ups, I realized that I were being using a lot of cliches because it was the first thing that came in my mind.
Yep.
So how a very small team could, or a very, very small project could pop up from the thousand a million games that
how do you stand out when everything's so saturated, right?
Exactly. How could we add to this game? So we realized that we have in the south of Spain this religious culture that is very macabre. How you say that in English? Macabre.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of making the game just gory
mm-hmm.
or bloody,
mm-hmm.
how about if we use this macabre atmosphere that we have in our churches and our paintings and our city is everywhere.
Yeah, that Catholic Gothic like architecture and everything. Yeah.
So we started to put these elements together and twist them even more
mm-hmm.
to be able to do to have something special. So yeah, from all of that, Blasphemous is coming from.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. And you, as you said, David, you immediately recognized it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I also because, well, I already had an idea about what the game was going to be about because Mauricio pitched me the game in one of the events, and I remember that he told me, "Hey, do you know how these Japanese games, which are really really amazing for us because they tell us about the culture, the Japanese culture, and we are so amazed by them. We want to do kind of the same, but with the Spanish culture. So people around the world can get interested in our culture and the different aspects of these elements. We will try to put those in a game.
Yeah.
So people can get curious about those things and wonder about the places and the monuments and the stories that we talk about in the game. And it turned to work really well because people are always discovering things that we tell about through the game. And it's a really nice thing to see people investigating, people wondering about the different elements that they see in the game.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I think, that cut through and that ability to stand out as well that you were talking about, Enrique, is just, it's really there in Blasphemous, but going so specifically into like, not only just like Spanish culture, but like specifically like Catholic south of Spain, like, so like you say, Seville almost, entirely is pretty amazing at how different. So, because video games, religious iconography is not new to video games. It's almost been done to death around the place. But in Blasphemous, it really is quite unique, in regards to the visuals and the setting and everything. David, do you, like you said, you've noticed that how people in various different cultures are learning about Spain's culture, but how about your Spanish friends, like people in Spain and your fans in particularly the south of Spain, where a lot of these, traditions and everything are still practiced today, like Holy Week? Have you seen a big reaction from your Spanish fans?
Well, absolutely. I think Spain, as well as in South America, are the players that recognize most of the elements.
Yes. Right.
With the Blasphemous 2 trailer, there was this moment in which, for a couple of seconds, a cathedral is shown in the background of one of the cats, and people started screaming, writing in uppercase on the chat. Oh, that's Cadiz Cathedral. I live in there. I recognize that. Hey, do you remember that we took a photo in there and posting the photos in front of the cathedral?
So there awesome.
So there are people in here, of course, recognize the different elements in the game. It kind of make it more, how do you say this? People is more willing to share the game if they recognize something.
If they see a part of themselves in it, it may be their gender, it may be their degree of ability or disability, but another way is their culture and even like things from their home. There's a show, there's a show based in Melbourne that's on Netflix. I'm not even sure if they show it in other places around the world. It's called, I think it's called Love Me. And it's just like a drama, like this woman and her family and stuff, but it's not the greatest show in the world because it's based in Melbourne. Like my partner and I, we love it. It's so good. Like you're like, oh wow, look at that. Or we live in such a beautiful city, don't we? It's really good. And it's like totally just got me because it's based in Melbourne. It does create this connection, this unique connection. It's interesting to hear you talking about people even sharing the game more because of it. It's absolutely astounding. And also to that note, is it both Blasphemous 1 and Blasphemous 2 that are also in like Castilian Spanish? Did you got them voice recorded in both? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Incredible. And that would have had a huge impact too, I imagine.
With an old touch, like sometimes characters speak in an older way.
Oh, right. Wow.
With a very some words that are not used, no longer used.
Yeah, like a forgotten dialect of Spanish.
Yes.
Amazing. Incredible. I think I should play. I can't believe I haven't played the game with that turned on. It's like when Ghost of Tsushima, was released with Japanese as one of the languages. I think I'm going to go into the settings and turn it on when I get off the call. It's awesome.
Also, we try to represent very different accents from not only Spain, but also from we can already say that because it's public already. We have people from Mexico,
right,
dubbing some of the characters, because we love the community in there, and they were really eager to have more.
He is the voice actor of Homer Simpson in Latin America.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see our producer in chat here as well is saying is happy that we're representing Mexico too. Yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. Just getting that represent, and of course, again, from like you've picked this region that isn't typically represented in these ways. So absolutely awesome. Okay, so you're making Blasphemous 1. Tell me a little bit about the development, Enrique. And I mean, because you're also, are we seeing a straight progression, like direct progression of like your talents in the art style as well? If you're the guy that has to like learn the pixel art and everything from the last door to Blasphemous 1, is that how much your personal art skills improved as well?
Yeah, totally.
That's pretty amazing, dude. That's a pretty incredible progression. So, firstly, congrats on that.
From the desperation, you can do many things. So, if you like drama, yes. I can tell you drama.
Yeah, exactly. When the survival instincts kick in, you're like the woman lifting the car off her child. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about, because I'm really keen to get onto Blasphemous 2 at some point, obviously, as well, and to hear about David's, entry into the team at that point too. But tell me a little bit about Blasphemous 1 and, things that you remember standing out from the development of it.
Let's say we started making this game from the art, not from design. From wow. Design. So we have to, when we have the art we wanted to make, with these elements and with this atmosphere, this setting, all of this, we had to think about how this game is going to be played, how this game is going to feel in your hands, in the controller. We struggled for a long time trying to find out how players are going to move this character, how is the combat is going to be, how the enemies are going to work.
Were there any sort of crazy, wild ideas that you, looking back now, you can't even imagine the game being like that? Like, was it going to be like a point and click shooter or something at some point? Or
not really, not that crazy.
It sort of came together pretty. It was an easy one. Once you had the art and everything, it sort of made sense what it was meant to be.
Yeah, well, it was easier. But even though we have this mock-up with the character, the size of the characters and the enemies, we had to find out how the game was going to be played. And we struggled for a long time trying to make how the combat is going to be placed, like in small arenas, or it's going to be a linear game, like arcade game. And eventually we find out that making a Metroidvania was the right choice for revisiting areas to people to see again these elements from Seville and from the south of Spain and stuff. And make the world of the game yours. As you play, you conquest the map. So making a sort of Metroidvania was the right choice, but it came very slowly. These ideas, we started to prototype the combat and the platforming and stuff. Very slow cook. How you say?
Yeah. You slow cooked it. It was a slow burn.
Yeah. So the art came first with a very strong, how you say, concept, and we were very confident about the art. So we started to think more about design, because the art was clear enough for us.
Yeah. You're like, problem solved for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've got enough figured out. Let's move our attention to design.
Yes.
Yeah. And so was that just, I imagine on such a small team, you work so cooperatively naturally anyway. So you say that you're the designer on Blasphemous, but did you have anyone helping out in a big way? Was it kind of a team effort, or were you sort of like other people were busy getting other parts of the game going, you were sort of locked in a room?
Yeah, as we were a very small team in that moment. We every team member had to make all the thing that they can. So
Yeah.
as I was the writer and the art director and stuff, I had the help of the first designer that came in the studio. That was Enrique Colinet. Was the first proper designer we had
Right.
in that moment.
Okay.
So I could work with him a lot.
Fantastic.
He's a more experienced level designer. So together we find out a lot of the stuff, and also we have the help of one of the programmer, Paco, that is very how you say skillful.
Yeah.
How you say
Very skilled.
in different things.
Yeah, a bit of
Different
like a
aspects.
generalist.
Yeah. So he helped a lot design the first bosses and the combat and yeah, it was a
Awesome.
very a teamwork.
That's awesome. Shout out to Paco for the boss fights in Blasphemous 1. It's awesome. It's a big part of the game. That's really cool. That's great. And so how long was the development of Blasphemous 1? How long were you spending on this title?
My memories of times right now at this point is very confused.
Yeah.
I think if David can correct me, 2 years and a half, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
David,
I think
do you remember something?
I think it was, yes, because I think it was like a year and a half, maybe a little more, since the end of the Kickstarter campaign to the release of the game.
Yeah, great. Okay.
More
And
or less.
so David, what kind of, the game was basically, Blasphemous 1 was almost finished when you came in. Were you, and I know you mentioned you were doing programming in your earlier days. Did you come on as a producer or as a programmer? Were you doing sort of both roles?
No, I joined as a programmer. In fact, my role was going to be the lead programmer because as the team started to grow, there was this need for leads on the different departments. So
Yes, of
Mauricio
course.
asked me to become the lead programmer for the team.
Yeah. And how big was the team at this point in time when you joined?
I think that I was the employee number 11.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Not counting freelancers.
Yeah, of course. But it
it
sounds
was
like on Blasphemous 1, the Kickstarter and some funding from the publisher, it also helped you to scale back up a little bit too.
A little bit. Yes, I can't tell you the exact details of
course,
the numbers. But yes, the team started to grow. I know that they were having kind of some struggles.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah. It's video games. It's bound to happen. You've been in survival mode for so long already. So tell me your impression of the game when you came in. So obviously you've seen it from the outside, David, but then coming in and seeing the game and everything and what you're, sort of so close to launch. What were your impressions?
I was amazed of how much they made with so little resources.
Yeah, it's funny, Enrique. You said that like you figured out the art style, and that's not an issue. We'll think about that later. But I imagine the amount of art that you had to make with so few people must have been a daunting concept at some point, right? Did it dawn on you at some point how big the game was, or did you know from the start, have a very good idea of how big you wanted the game to be?
No, it came slowly. As we had the money to hire more people, we could grow the team a little, and I stopped making art. So the art was made by proper artists.
Yeah.
And we had also the opportunity to hire more designers and people that helped me to decorate. How you say decorate the levels?
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
You make the geometry and you start to make the sprites and and we have
all the environment art.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so tell me now about we've made the game. David's on the team. You're heading towards launch. You have a publisher on board helping you out. What was the feeling like when it landed? And did you have any idea how good the response was going to be to the game, like the kind of success that you're about to walk into?
I was terrified. To be honest, we were kind of confused. We are making this game for a long time. You start to lose your confidence a lot. You start to lose your focus.
Yeah.
And the doubts start to come in non-stop.
Yep.
So as the moment you release the game, you don't know what you have done at all. And you say, okay, let's wait to see what happened.
Yeah.
But that is a common feeling in game development. When you are very focused for a long time, you start to lose that your own criteria. You lose it. You know.
Yeah. Of course.
You don't know anymore if you are doing something good or bad. And eventually the reaction was very good. And we could also fix things in the first updates of the game.
Yep.
To be able to, to fix a lot of problems that come up in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have enough resources to make sure that the game was super great and free of bugs.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that I think I see a lot of folks, even now when people know about small indie teams and how small some of the teams are. Like you said, David, 11 or 12 people or something before the game launches, around 10 folks to get this game out the door. People think about that in regards to maybe the scale or the size of the game, but there is so much more that, smaller indie teams aren't able to do. And one of those things is, ensure that like the game is free of bugs in like this huge, Metroidvania, or that it runs on all of these weird combinations of PCs that people have, or, ensuring that the Steam page is there. But you said that once you got it out there that you quickly followed up with some patches and things like that, because you did support the game with free DLC and stuff like that after launch, right?
Yes. We wanted to also to be able to put all the ideas that we couldn't put in the game for launch.
Yep.
And we had this opportunity to learn a lot from the first version of the game, and put everything that we missed in the game. And also, it's like a thanks for how you say to thank the community. To say, hey, you help us a lot to releasing the game, to make this game a reality. So here you have three free DLCs and our forever thank you.
That's amazing. And so, David, when did that plan for the free DLC and the thank you to the community come up? Do you remember that moment where you decided, all of you, to be like, let's make this huge amount of free content for the community? Or did it kind of just happen naturally?
I think it was all already part of the plan.
Yeah.
So if the game turned out great, as it did, there were going to be these free DLCs, which included a lot of things that were promised during the Kickstarter campaign that couldn't make it to the release of the game.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the amount of money that you raise for the campaign for Kickstarter might seem like a lot of money, but it really isn't enough to produce a huge game. Even with a small team, the burn ratio of the money is incredible high.
Yeah.
So some people ask, hey, why didn't you add all this content for the release of the game? Because even with 10 people, there's not enough resources to make that happen. So yeah, the free DLCs were a way to to comply with those promises, with the desire of the team of making the game that we really, and now I'm including myself because I was already there.
But yeah, you're a backer. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
not
Really,
as a,
it was for you. Yeah.
no, but I mean that I was already in the team, so
Yeah, true.
I was already working on the 3 DLCs.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Blasphemous One. It was obviously such a success. And after you've been in survival mode for so long, I can imagine it must have been in some parts a relief, but in some parts, like you don't know whether to trust if it's reality or not. I'm sure, you know. But let's talk about, because I know, I've read in a couple of interviews that the moment of actually deciding whether to even do a sequel or not was something. So maybe Enrique, tell us a little bit about that, the decision to even do Blasphemous 2.
There was how you say this, a moment when we didn't know what to do next.
Yep.
We really didn't know what to do. A sequel apparently was a nice idea, but after you release the game, you have this part of you that wants to make a sequel because you have learned a lot and you know the next step, how the next step could be. But also, the team has been working for a long time in this IP, so the team don't know yet what to do. But we have this opportunity that came from the publisher. That hey, we have this IP. You have to do this again. This IP is going to work a lot.
Yeah.
Let's back to work. Let's do it together. The publisher gave us the last, how you say, the push
Yeah.
in also emotionally and psychologically, this push.
Right.
And we also have a lot of things that elements also from this south of Spain and this idea for bosses, and a lot of ideas were in the air in our minds. And we decided to make the sequel, and we'll be able to put these ideas that were very nice, very, how you say, very, they have a lot of potential.
Yes, right. Okay. So there was still, even after Blasphemous 1 and how big the first game was, you hadn't exhausted all of the possibilities and the potential of like this subject matter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
So we have the opportunity to improve the game in terms of design and progression.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff that we learn how to make the game even better. The control. We wanted to make a smoother controls, and a lot of stuff that we.
A lot of improvements possible.
Yeah.
And on that, David, one that I heard about is that you rebuilt the game from scratch, Blasphemous 2, which is a huge decision, because I know, for example, and amazing that your publisher wasn't terrified hearing that, or they might have been, right? Because I know that obviously first sequels, the follow-up to a successful game, one of the main reasons why you do them is because you've already done all the work or whatever. So talk me a little bit through the decision to do such a huge undertaking of rebuilding the game from scratch, all of the code and everything.
Well, at the end, it all comes from the fact that the game was made with a really tight budget, both economically and with the amount of people who could work on the game. So even the game Blasphemous 1 is a great game, and it got even better with the DLCs. But this decision was made even before the release of DLC 2 and 3. Because the decision of working on this sequel was around the time of the release of the first DLC, if I remember correctly, Enrique. This was in March. I can't remember when was the release of DLC 1.
No, my memories are
Blurry.
totally.
Yeah.
That's okay. But it was
Yeah.
generally around that time. So you hadn't even finished on Blasphemous 1 in
No,
support, and you already
in
made the decision.
In
Yeah.
fact, one of the things that we discussed, because Enrique didn't mention, but we had a really long meeting at the old office about, hey, do we want to make this sequel? Because the publisher proposed this, but we have to make this decision as a team.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had to take into account was hey, we still need to release DLC 2 and 3.
Yeah.
These are the dates that we can work with. And 2 months later, there was Paco, the programmer. He went to Unity, create new project, Blasphemous 2.
I
Why?
did read Blasphemous too. Yeah.
Yeah. Why? But, because, as I said, there were many things that we knew could be improved in the game, not only as a game, but as a software project. I mean, it was barely. It would be really hard to, nearly impossible, not impossible, but really hard to implement some of the things that we did with Blasphemous 2. For example, the 3 weapons or the different kind of prayers. That would have been kind of a nightmare to implement with the code base from Blasphemous 1. So we had this talk. It wasn't really long. It was more like a quick decision. Hey, do you agree that this would be a good idea? Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So it sounded like it was a pretty obvious thing to do. It sounded like the amount of tech debt you were carrying forward, because you had to just, like you say, with so few people, rush through getting Blasphemous 1, sort of to the finish line to some degree. Like that, it was almost going to be impossible, as you say, to remake, make a sequel on that code base. Wow. And Enrique, did it make your life easier?
Yes.
This is something that we say. Sorry, Enrique. This is something that we say, but this is kind of a disclaimer. We don't recommend doing this.
Yeah. Classic. I love it. It's like, look, it worked out well for us and everything, but we don't recommend other people do it. So tell us, that's really, interesting in hindsight.
Yeah, it's really risky.
Yeah.
Because you already have a project that works, and you could perfectly, swap assets and keep on working on the same code base and try to make the sequel. But the amount of changes that we wanted design wise,
necessitated it. Yeah.
Yes, it really did. So, but
so you feel you were in. So I think it's really good for our developer friends to hear this, especially some of the the smaller, more indie ones. Is like the only reason why you felt that it was a good call for you at the Game Kitchen and for Blasphemous 2 is because of the unique situation that you were in and needing to. And so, talking about those design decisions, another thing that I've seen spoken about, Enrique, is that this one was more about getting back to like a pure Metroidvania as well. Am I right in saying that? So what? Because I've heard that you say that term. So what does that mean to you? What did that mean? Thinking about Blasphemous 1 and making number 2 more pure to those Metroidvanias that we all know and love.
Blasphemous 1 was not a pure Metroidvania. It was more like a mix of genres, kind of a Metroidvania, optional abilities for the player to reach other areas and stuff. Some people call it a Souls-like game, but other people call it a Metroidvania. So the community itself decided that this game was a Metroidvania, even though it's not pure, but they put that in that genre. And we like the idea to make this time more pure Metroidvania as a challenge for us. It's like we wanted to make that this time around instead of these mix genres and stuff. I think the whole team wanted to make this game this time a more pure stuff. It's like a feels right in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seemed like the community really enjoyed that element of it because it does have, like, I can see the Souls like, sort of reference. It does have some of those elements, but it's, it is very much very strong in the Metroidvania sense, like even number one. And so, if thinking about those Metroidvania elements, something else that I've heard you talk about is the controls of the game too, and tightening those up. Give us. I think it's always fun when someone goes deep on like a specific thing that they worked for a lot of time on. I remember I spoke to Ben Brode, on Marvel Snap about how the hand feels of the hand of cards. What was something that you and maybe a colleague worked for a huge amount of time on to just get to feel right? Do you remember? Does anything come to mind in Blasphemous 2?
Yeah, as Blasphemous 1 was our first platformer, there was a lot of stuff that we didn't knew that we had to fix and had to design. We work using our intuition and
Yeah.
our
Yeah, of
own
course.
experience. But the community said several times that the controls were not as tight as they wanted to be. So we fix a lot of these issues in the DLCs, but we learn a lot on this matter, and we started to analyze many of their games and find out how we could improve our own player controller, and we find out a lot of little things that really we didn't know that those exist.
Like little video game development conventions or things like hacks to help you
Yeah.
out, right?
For
Yeah.
example, if you push the dash button
Yeah.
and you are the enough height to feel that the player has reached that platform,
Yeah.
but technically the player is in the engine is a little bit down. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Just
technically,
isn't quite making it technically,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. But if when you're playing, you feel that uncomfortable. So
Yes. Right.
you
Okay.
have to break that rule,
Yeah.
and let's just make the player to reach the platform, and
Yeah.
let's they to have fun and forget about the jump. So
Yeah.
a lot of things here and there about combat, where you are fighting, but an enemy is going to hit you, and you want to press the parry button to protect yourself, but the animation of your attack have not finished yet, and you press that button and the player don't react, and you take the hit, and it's very frustrating. So you have to have to break the attack animation, and be able to trigger the parry animation, and yet to make it feel more comfortable in general in a lot of aspects. And our programmer Paco was very into that during the whole development. So he's in charge of of this
All the little
smoother,
hacks.
yeah,
Yeah.
The whole gameplay experience is something that has been tuned during the whole development. It's not something that you can say, "Hey, we spent 2 months
Yeah.
fine tuning the
Yeah.
controls of the game." I don't know. It's something that has been done during the whole process.
Yeah.
I would dare to say that even a week or a couple of weeks before the release of the game,
You're
we were
still tweaking
yeah,
things.
because
tweaking the cancellation window for the different animations.
Wow.
you had to
Amazing.
notice at first that something is wrong. That's very difficult when you have
Yeah.
been playing the game for a long time, for years and every day. So how you find
Yeah.
out? Do you notice? Can you notice that something is wrong in a combat? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Have to be very, how you say, sensitive. You have to be very sensitive about it, and have to know where the problem is. Not only if something is comfortable or something is unfair,
Yeah.
but you have to know where the problem is and
Yeah.
how to fix that problem if it's fixable.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point that we're so close to the games that we play. That we make. And I guess we're playing them every day. We're talking about them. We're making them. We're playing them. We're writing documents and little manifestos that we give to folks on the team about them in various areas. David, what was one of the ways in which you and the team made sure that you were able to have that sort of that your sense of reality checked and to ensure that the game was coming together, to find those things that Enrique is saying are really, really hard to find? Because now you've got a whole community of players that know this game. Did you do anything like bring in some players early on to play the game and stuff like that? Yeah, tell me about it.
Yes, we had two playtesting sessions, which were the first time that someone outside of the studio played the game.
Yeah.
Some of them we knew in person.
Yeah.
I mean, they were close friends of some people of the studio, but some people were not as close. So, but we only asked them to be brutally honest about the game, which is the only reason for making these playtesting sessions, because you want people to be brutally honest about what they are playing. I don't need someone to say, "Hey, this is great," if it's not.
Yeah.
Because that's
Also,
why I already know, or I already feel.
We think our own games are awesome, right?
Yeah. We know they could be improved, but as Enrique said, we are kind of blind to all these defects and things that could be improved. So with these two playtesting sessions, we found that some of the decisions that we had already made and that we truly thought that were good for the game were not good at all.
When you do a play session like that, those players are not developers, so those players can explain in their own words how they feel, and they can say that the game feels great. But even with that answer, you have to be you have to really observe how they play.
Yes.
And find out things that they don't even know. Find problems that the players that are testing don't even notice.
Yeah.
So
it's a classic thing, right? Like, listen to what they mean, not to what they say a lot of the time. Or, just sometimes you're just watching how they play. Yeah.
So they say they like it, but how much, how can we improve that? And in a lot of terms, and bosses
they
and
say,
compounds.
for example, they said, "Hey, we didn't have any problem traversing the different levels, but we saw one person, for example, trying to grab a wall, to do a wall climb, where way before they got that ability, and they spent like a whole minute trying to grab into that wall, and we were commenting, hey, he's trying to climb, but he doesn't have the ability, and he doesn't see this as a problem. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why he keeps on trying to?
Why does he think that these repeated attempts are maybe going to result in him being able to wall climb?
Is it him? Is it us?
What's going on?
Yeah. It could be either of those things or a combination of two, right?
And he didn't even mention that on the feedback report after the event.
Yeah.
But as we were observing, we knew that was a problem.
Yeah. And when you see players, other players playing your game, you are, paying attention to everything. But when it's not just a play testing, when you see a the journalist playing the game, it's so terrifying.
The sweats.
Of course.
You are sweating. You say, let's see if she or he is having a good time playing and you pay attention to every move they make. When there's the press, it's very terrifying.
So when you release the game to the community, obviously to resounding praise from them. What were the things that really rose to the top that it seemed resonated with them?
I think in general, players said the community said that the game feels more tight, more responsive, more nice, more smooth.
Mm-hmm.
In general, the combat feels better. The platforming also feels much better. The game is less. Let's say this time the game is more fair.
That's an interesting one, more fair, because it's, I understand the concept of it, right? Like when it's a classic thing in game design, when you fail, it should be the game's fault, it should be your fault, not the game's fault, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So tell me, what was it from Blasphemous 1 to Blasphemous 2 that you felt was, unfair and you had to change to have the player feel like it was their fault that they were dying? Was that it, or were there other elements of fairness?
Oh, for example, just the platforming, when you don't do a right jump and you fall into spikes and this instant death.
Right, yeah, the hard fails there. Okay, yeah.
So there are a lot of players.
It's a combination of the gameplay. In that specific example, it's a combination of the gameplay controls, which make you fail for example, grabbing a ladder.
Yeah.
And then make you fall in the spikes, which insta-kill you.
Yeah.
Which some people found really unfair.
Yeah.
Some people on the other side love that. There are some complaints that there's always it's impossible to make something that makes everyone happy. So there are some people complaining that, hey, the spikes are not insta-kill this time. I prefer
the insta-kill
for this to be a huge penalty for me.
Yeah, some people really like that, and that's always something that I think, if you're supporting the game later, you can add in later on. But also, it's not necessarily tied to a pillar of the game, I imagine, too. So you giving, making those little adjustments around the place, like you say, the little hack to make sure they get onto the ledge properly, and then softening that. I've actually worked on a game before as well where that was something that we did for the sequel too, was removed all of the falling to your death situations, so you could never do it in the game. It was like a soft fail always. It just has a huge impact, so it's great to hear. Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the Game Kitchen and Blasphemous 2 moving forward. Do you have any plans that that you've shared with your community, or that you're happy to share here about what's on the roadmap for Blasphemous 2?
Well, when we released the game, as you know, before the release of the game, the press review for the game were really great. We were really happy, but we were still terrified, because for us, the real reviewers are players.
The players, yeah, exactly.
Because they are merciless, and if they have to say, if they have to say that the game sucks, they are going to say it. They don't need to be polite about it. And you can't go to a player's house and say, no, you don't understand this, because the thing is that the game you have to do this and that because for this reason. No, they are alone.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you get arrested. I'm pretty sure you'll get arrested if you try and go to a player's house, right?
So we were really, really eager to see the reaction of players, and we saw that a few of the complaints that they had were related to the controls of the game, and maybe some people don't like the style of the cutscenes, or they felt that some aspects of the combat were not as tight as they would expect. So we worked on the first patch of the game, which was released like 2 weeks ago, just before we got our days off. And so today we just got back. This is the time to start thinking about the future of the game.
Yeah. So you're like, ask me again next week, right? Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And so, Enrique, for you, I mean, you spent your time in The Last Door, obviously very sort of horror-driven game. You've now done Blasphemous 1 and Blasphemous 2. Are you excited to keep, working in this sort of this space, whether it be blasphemous or horror, or this, or are we going to see like a cute gardening sim out of you or something next? Is it we're going to get Enrique's cozy game?
I'm open to new stuff, but yeah, I think I'm very comfortable with the horror and this gory gory thing. I'm very narrative driven things, and yeah, that's a type I feel comfortable with. And when you feel at home, your passion goes through you easily,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I remember at the start, I don't even know if we were recording yet. I asked you what kind of books you were reading on your holidays, and you said horror. So it checks out, and I'm sure you've got millions of players now that would be happy to hear that as well. So I think we might wrap it up here. Congratulations to the two of you and the rest of the Game Kitchen on your resounding success, not only with Blasphemous 1, but then doing the, what is often the impossible, following up with number 2 and improving upon the incredible work that you already did with Blasphemous 1. And also for escaping the jaws of death, like there at the start, and being in survival mode for so long, Enrique. I'm really glad to hear that you had a holiday,
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I won't take any more of your time. Have a wonderful day, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Trent. Likewise.